Welcome everybody to Sober Life Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Jones, coming to you from the Sober Life Studios. And this show is brought to you by One Brother, One Sister, the nonprofit that brings trainings, education, and help to our first responders and our veterans, and in the areas of trauma, mental health, and most importantly, addictions. So, One Brother, One Sister. If you want to know more about One Brother, One Sister, go to onebrother1sister.com. And they can always use your support. All of these trainings they provide are free to our first responders and our veterans. And we are funded through your donations and your sponsorship. So if you'd like to know more, you can give Karen a call. Is my business partner in One Brother, One Sister at 786-514-0893. Tell her you heard it right here on the Sober Life Podcast. But let's get on with our show. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe to the channel and share this with your friends. Also, leave your comments. I know that you're not watching live when you're watching this sometimes, but even if you leave your comments, we do get to read those, and it's very, very important that we know what you're thinking. If you'd like to be a guest on Sober Life Podcast, if you've got a story to share about addiction, recovery, or mental health, certainly join us. We like to look at the lighter side of things here on the show. Anybody can spend all their time talking about the dark stuff, but there's a lighter side, which is about living a life in recovery and having fun and sharing the joy and helping other people. But with that, I've got a guy who spends a lot of time helping other people. He's got a great story about his addiction and subsequent recovery. He just celebrated 14 years in recovery. And he's, again, one of those guys who decided to be of service to others in not only his regular life, but in his work life and everywhere else. And this is my good friend, Frank McCoy. Let's bring him in. Hey, Frank, how you doing, brother?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fine. Was I lying about any of that stuff I said about you?
No, it's pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate. Okay, good.
Yes,
Good, man. Good, man. Now, you are, just so people know who you are at the moment, you work for Brevard C.A.R.E.S up in Brevard County, Florida.
Yeah, the mobile response team.
And mobile response team, that would be response to crisis, or what would the response be?
Crisis team does respond to crisis situations, people with mental health and substance use disorder issues. The therapists, who are 24/7, 365, and they rotate. There's 10 or 12 of them that rotate. Our county is divided into north and the south because it's a big county and we have to respond in a timely manner for our managing entity where we get our money from. So in order to make us more effective, we divide the county up into north and south. You got two therapists on in the north, two therapists on in the south, and there are 4, 2 up north and 2 in the south, in waiting. And then on the rest of them are resting because they were on call for 24/7, 4 or 5 days in a row. They'll respond to the crisis, de-escalate it. Our whole goal, we're what you call prevention, and we want to keep law enforcement, we want to keep DCF. We don't want it to go what we call judicial. Once it goes judicial, the family has no choice. They're going to come in and tell you what to do. Right. But anyway, they'll de-escalate, and then they'll send a referral over to care coordination, which is my partner, and peer support, which is me, and care coordination makes an appointment with the people, and they go out and we try and see what kind of services they need to keep them from going judicial, and then try and implement and work with them.
I see. So you're being contacted, I guess, normally, I guess there's always different circumstances, but a normal situation is if a first responder goes out and comes across an emergency situation or a situation of crisis, mental health or addiction or whatever it might be, they call you to come in. Is that right? The first responders call you?
Some we work with some of the police departments, not all yet. Melbourne Police Department actually has their own funding for their own mobile crisis unit. Okay. And they work with the police and go out. They carry police radios. We don't do that. Their response time is 15 minutes because they got the radio Ours is an hour because
Right.
therapist. You know. So the schools call us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you get direct calls from some situations before they call anybody else, though. You do get direct calls too.
Yeah.
What did they do before this was in place? What was
They usually call, I guess, 911, or they didn't call. Yeah, there's what is it? 211 is a number that they could call for in our county and get some sort of help. You know, but they just give them phone numbers and tell them where to go and everything. This is direct contact, and um, you know, immediately working with the problem, with their issues. You know, trying to, you know, a lot of times I'll go out and the kids, you know, don't quite understand, and I share with them. They don't know what preventative is, and I explain it to them. It's like your choice. You know, you get to choose. I'm going to give you some ideas of what we have. We got tutors and therapists, and I can come out as a peer support and hang out with you, or, you know, if you're not getting enough attention or whatever, if you feel like you're left out. You know, we can get involved in civic and community different programs. We can help you with these things, but this is to help you get yourself together, because if you continue down this road, it becomes judicial. You got choices now. You can choose from these things. Once it goes judicial and you wind up in court, your choices go away. You don't get to pick.
Right.
So
wow.
they're gonna come in and say, no, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, you know. So once you tell them that, a lot of them understand. You know, I'm like let's try this. You know, this doesn't work, and we always tell them we can change to something else. You get to choose.
Well, given that scenario that you're talking about, I mean, you know, it's good that we have that kind of first stop at the possibility to get help and to ask for help and to get these services. Is this a kind of a new program, or how long has this been around?
I don't know exactly how long, but it's been a while, but it's grown.
Okay.
I know a few years back, there was only 2 therapists, and they worked round the clock, and it was really hard on them. And that's our bosses. They just run it now, and they do a significantly, just a great job putting the team together too. Like, I played a lot of sports, and it's always understood, like, anybody that watches sports, you can hear if they're a great player, great. But if they're not good in the locker room or in the clubhouse, if they're disruptive, then they're not good for the team.
Right.
So our therapist, our boss that put this team together, interviews very carefully to see who will work well in this group that he's put together. So he's a mastermind in doing that. He really is.
Wow. That is so cool. Is this now? You've been in recovery now 14 years. Do you mind telling us what was your downfall? Was it alcohol, drugs, or what was your downfall?
Yes.
What was in front of me that day, right?
Yeah. I grew up in South Florida. A little town called Boynton Beach. I went to high school in Delray during the 80s. And cocaine was a big thing, right?
Okay.
So after that, through continued use, later on, the pain pills became a thing. I was still playing baseball. My arm always hurt. I was a pitcher. And the pain pills are what really tore my ass off, because that opiate thing, it's rough. You know, it's rough.
Yeah.
So, but I got in some legal trouble. I don't know how deep you want me to go into that. I'm happy to do it, but they dropped the charges. I was part of a pill ring in Vero Beach, and we had 8 people seeing 9 doctors, and it was crazy because back then the only 3 pharmacies that were connected on on the internet was CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. So you could go to these other little mom and pop pharmacies to fill your script. So we're going to all these different doctors with all these different people, and we're having to remember which person on this day went to it was just 9 people you got to remember, and being torn up. You can't write it down because if you get pulled over, you're going to jail.
Yeah.
They're going to say, "What's this?" Get in the car.
So
So
you were using falsified scripts.
what's that?
You were using forged prescriptions.
Not falsified scripts. They were the legitimate scripts from different doctors.
Oh, okay.
In different cities.
You were going to multiple doctors to get multiple scripts to take to multiple pharmacies. And that's
me and seven other people in our little group.
So how many places would you go to in a week?
2 or 3.
All right. So each one of you, if you're doing 2 or 3, that's a lot. Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I can see how that can create a big. And then were they being sold on the streets, or how were they being sold?
Here's how it went. My addiction was so bad. I needed X number to keep, right? And it was quite a bit of,
well, they always do say take care of yourself first.
Right. But
that's what you did.
Then basically that's what we were doing for a living. So we sold some on the way home. Right. And that's what, when I got into trouble, and it was a felony charge. It was aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The guy owed me money. I went looking for him in a apartment complex with a shotgun and a box of shells because he had a Glock and I knew it. Okay. So I didn't want to be outgunned.
Sure.
We talk about the insanity, right, of our disease, right? Guy can lead in step 2, go a power brain on ourselves. Will bring us back to sanity. I went looking for a guy with a shotgun, never thinking about if he shoots me, if I shoot him, what if a bystander gets shot? Just insane. That's insane.
Well, this is good, Frank. I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people think, well, were you trying to kill somebody? And that's not really what was on your mind. You in your mind, this was part of a business transaction, and I've got to go get my money, and he's got a gun, so I'll have it. You're not thinking about the violence that might occur, but that's part of our disease, just keeping us going forward, is staying in denial of what we're really doing, right?
Well, yes and no. Because I believed and here's the thing that's really, really crazy. He only owed me $300.
Okay. So
right?
You're going to get in a gunfight over $300.
Right? So I'm running around this apartment complex and couldn't find him. I'm getting ready to get back in my car, and somebody called it in, and I'm looking down the barrel of 2 Glocks, sheriff's officers. So they arrested me. They arrested me on aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and unlawful display of a firearm. Now, people are calling me. I got bailed out, and I had a trial date set and everything. People are calling me, and I said, on the phone, I was telling them, I'll take it to the box. I'll take it to trial. I never leveled that gun off at anybody, so I didn't aggravate assault anyone. They'll have to, they'll have to drop that. They got me on unlawful display, a misdemeanor. They got me on that.
Right.
Well, here's the thing I didn't know till a year later, because after all this cleared, I went away to get clean, and I'll tell you about that in a second. And I had all my mail forwarded to my sister. And one day, Indian River Sheriff's Department had written me a letter, and it says no further action will be taken. We were listening to these numbers, and we were watching all the text between these numbers, and there's all 8 of our numbers, right? So they heard me say, I'm taking it to the box. I'm going to, I'm going to, so I had, when the day they dropped it on Friday, they dropped all charges on Friday. My sister called me and said, will you go to treatment? And I burst into tears, because every night when I put my kid to bed, I'd go in my room and cry, because I was stuck and I couldn't quit. And I didn't know how to get out of this. And I had just got the answer. And I said, my first question, what am I going to do with my son? And I have 3 sisters. She says the other sister has already made arrangements to come and get him. So that happened on the evening of the Friday they dropped the charges. I had a Monday, another doctor appointment. Me and one other person saw the same doctor on the same day. They dropped the charges because they knew I were going to that doctor. They were going to get me for trafficking on Monday. I got a plane out to treatment on Sunday, and it never happened. You want to talk about?
Did you know they were going to do it, or did you just have a feeling?
I didn't know until I got the letter.
Oh, okay. So you didn't know, so that was just kind of almost divine intervention that you left on Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because if you'd done, even if you've had the best intentions to go to treatment, a lot of people might put it off a couple extra days. You didn't do it. You went.
No, I jumped right.
Thank goodness, right?
I jumped right on the opportunity. I had
what
no
kind
idea.
Of charges what kind of charges would those have been? I mean, that trafficking stuff, they don't drop those.
No, and they'd have had me.
They would have had you.
I think I was getting like 480 30 milligram Roxasets, and my partner was getting about the same.
Right. Because, back in the days, this is before fentanyl and a lot of other things that we.
Yeah.
But that was back when Oxys and Roxys and all that stuff were the top of the game. That was the top of the game. But how old were you when all that went down?
46.
46 years old. You're still running around like a little kid.
Like an idiot. Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, we all, I did it, same thing. So, so you went into treatment, and did you get sober?
Yeah. Now, I had previously tried about, a year before that. I went to AA, and I was still seeing the doctors, but I wasn't drinking. I went 18 months without drinking, but I'd show up at meetings slurring my speech. And one day my sponsor pulled me aside and says, I can't work with you. And I'm like, why? He says, you need to go to the other program because I don't know what to do with everything that you're doing. I think you got a problem with this other, with this doctor thing you're doing. And I don't know how to deal with that because my experience has been alcohol. And that gave me in my mind, and again, the insanity, that gave me the green light to go back drinking, doing everything else again. I went on for another year until the story I just gave you happened. And when I went away to treatment that time, I was so done. I just went into treatment and said, tell me what to do. I don't care what it is. Tell me what to do. I don't ever want to go back. And thank God, I have.
Now, was a big part of that that willingness have to do with your son?
Yeah. And that's funny. I think you and I talked about this before because we've known each other for a while. Yeah. Originally, I did it for my son. And then I figured out that I had to do it for me. Yeah.
Well, I'm a firm believer. Listen, if you walk through the doors because you want to save your son, if you walk through the doors because you want to be a better husband or save your marriage, that's fine. But you got to be, if you don't figure out pretty quick, the way to be a better father is to be a better person, which means I got to work on me. The way to be a better husband is to be a better person. Which, if you don't make that connection and it's still just about them after a period of time, then you're right. It's not going to stick because you're not changing here. You're trying to change everything out here. But, whatever, that motivation to have your son is, I'm going to do this for me. But that's, he's my anchor. He's my anchor to reality. I want to get back and be a better father and do all those things by being a better me, right?
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. What I tell people is everything out there, like Budweiser and Jack Daniel's, still going to make their thing, right? Yeah. Doctors, even though they crack down on the doctors, few and far between, you can still find a doctor that'll write.
Right.
Corner boys are still going to be there. So everything out there is the same. What has to change is in here. It has to be me. I have to change. That will never change except for getting worse. It's getting worse now. So
one of the things I love to point out just on that point there, you're right. Jack Daniels is always going to be there. But Jack Daniels wasn't the problem. because there's people that can go out and drink a glass of Jack Daniels. I'm not one of them. My problem is I knew it was bad for me, but I still did it. You know, if I made Jack Daniels go away, I'll switch to Jimmy Bean. If I make Jimmy Bean go away, I'll switch to Johnny Walker. It doesn't matter. There's lots of J names out there that I can go to. Jameson, and there's more. It's got nothing to do with the, it's all that focus is on, I got to make all that go away. No, it's always going to be there. But what am I going to do with it? It's like just because some people in this world are allergic to peanut butter doesn't mean we've got to get rid of all the Skippy on the planet. It means those people need to understand I don't belong in the peanut butter aisle at the supermarket. It's not my territory. I've got everything else. What difference does it make? Now, the thing is, somebody who's allergic to peanuts doesn't usually sit in the aisle, look up at the Skippy, and start crying. But we'll sit outside a liquor store and sob for a while, won't we? We'll try to think about that obsession. And it's because we don't think of it in simple terms. Simple terms. Drugs and alcohol don't work in me. It doesn't work with my body, doesn't work with my spirit, doesn't work with my mind, doesn't work with me at all. So don't do it. Do something else. It's almost that simple, but very complicated at the same time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And knowing, and I learned this from you guys, and a bunch of reading. When I went into that treatment center, I have a sister with a master's degree, and she's a therapist, and she said, be a sponge, brother. Learn everything you can. Learn everything you can about this disease so you can live. Right. And that's what I've done. I told somebody the other day, like, through you guys, through one brother, one sister, and as much as I can, like, I'm collecting certifications like they're baseball cards. I mean, I'm trying to do the thing, so I can help somebody else, because the more knowledge I have of how it works in my brain and how we go through life and how to help other people, the more people I can help. So,
and you're always a joy to have in the class. We always love having you there, Frank. You're so much fun. You got such a great energy, and and you're one of the people. You'll add and ask questions and do things sometimes when the room is like, I'm just like, well, somebody needs to get involved here. And then next thing I know, I look over and you're there like, hey, what about this? And we love that. We love that.
Sometimes I think I need to curb that a little bit, but
you know what? We know just to, we'll be right with you. But but no, I never want to stop somebody from asking questions. I think we need to question more things in recovery. We need to understand why we do and what we do, and never just say, just do this because I say so. We don't need that life anymore. We would need to understand.
In our talks, like on the breaks in the training, you clarified something for me. I do, and I do this thing on the neuroscience of addiction.
Yeah.
And I have a part of that where I say the brain holds back on, it's about tolerance, how the brain holds back the dopamine. And it doesn't really hold back. You explain the what is it? The synapse.
It's the neural synapse, and it's
right. And eventually, it's like this: senders and receivers, and then the receivers get burned out, and then it doesn't have like. I think I love the way you explain it. You got 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. It's
I used to also explain it like, if you're in a Corvette and you're burning down the road, you're going fast. Now, and that's your brain. It can go as fast as you can handle. All you got to do is practice and learn, and your brain is fantastic. But you can put jet fuel in that car if you want. That's the drugs. You'll go like hell, but you're going to burn that engine out. And even if you stop doing the drugs, it's going to take a long time to repair that engine. It's the same thing with our brains. Same thing with our brains.
We've talked about that too. Like, if I'm doing drugs and I stop today, now everybody's brain and body chemistry is different, but the average time, depending upon what you used, how much you used, and how long you used it, the average time for your brain to heal, I think, is 2 years, roughly.
It's anywhere from like 16 months to 2 years, something like that. there's some people will actually heal, their brain heals in 6 months. It's got nothing to do with anything other than everybody's chemistry is different and it all repairs at a different rate. Sure. There's no way to predict it. There's no way to predict it. Just understand it could take 2 years.
Right. I saw little improvements. Like At 3 months, I was at my halfway house, and the only reason I ever went to Walmart was to fill my Roxy script. That was it. Give me my Roxy's. I make 2 stops on the way home, go home with what I need to get by and some money, right?
There's a lot of other shit in that store. You know that.
Well, I learned. So I go in and I need to, socks and T-shirts and underwear and food for the halfway house. And I'm on my way out the door, 3 months clean. And it hits me. I never even thought about where the pharmacy was. And it was like totally different thinking for me. Right. I'm like, this shit's working. I need to keep doing it. Right.
And that's just a clear example of your brain, the fog lifting.
Yes.
Where you're no longer just obsessed with one thought, that you now can focus on other things. Yeah. And it's, because it's not so much, I want to make sure people understand this. It's not about taking every moment to say, I can't drink and I can't use. I mean, that's at the very beginning. That's that 1 day at a time, 1 minute at a time. Just don't drink today. And now let me get through the day and do all this. That's fine. But as you grow in recovery, what happens is it becomes something that's not even a part of your daily thought, because you're so you're so focused on doing the good things and living a life that you built that it's not even like, I don't think about rubbing a cheese grater across my forehead, and I also don't think about drinking. I don't want to do either one of those things, and they're not part of my daily life anymore. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And in that same thing, and I think you've watched it, I talk about, building the new, right? With neuroplasticity. Yeah. If you do something over and over and over and over, it becomes normal. Well, Socrates, we're talking about a man that lived before Christ, said that the whole thing with change is not to combat the old, but to think about and build the new.
That's right.
That is the whole idea of neuroplasticity before Christ. It's like, I don't know. That blows my mind.
It's all about, and I love Socrates. I loved his last words when he said, I drank what? But anyway, if you don't know what that means, look up Socrates. You'll find out. He drank poison.
Hemlock, I believe.
Yes, it was hemlock. Very good. But there's this the philosophy of stop thinking about what you don't want and start thinking about what you do want.
Right. Because the fear inside you and the thought inside you will create the same thing, the same behavior loop.
If I'm thinking about the things I don't want, I create a fear. If I'm full of fear, it will create the thought about what I don't want. So that goes in a cycle, fear and negative thinking. So if, it's like if you're standing on a plank and you're up in the air and the water's down really far and you're thinking, if I'm thinking about landing wrong and hurting myself, if I'm thinking about all the things I don't want to happen, it'll create a fear. But if I'm thinking about the positive, like how cool is it going to feel to jump from here and go down and hit that water? How cool is that going to feel? You combat the fear. So sometimes that thought of, and sometimes, some of the old school 12-steppers and other groups even spend a little too much time on, hey, I might drink tomorrow kind of thinking. And it's like, that creates that fear though. So why don't I think, hey, you know what? The way I'm living today, I'm just going to keep doing this every day. And that's what I think about, right?
I tell tonight's Wednesday, right? So every Wednesday I do an H&I thing at a local treatment center, right?
Nice.
And that's what I tell them. I'm like, once you get the thing down, you guys say just 1 day at a time. We say just for today. Same concept, right?
Same thing, yeah.
Once you get it down, assume that you're going to do the same shit tomorrow and be okay. Just assume it.
You assume it. Say it out loud. Say it out loud. Every morning when you get up, say, here I go again. It's going to be a great day. And that's, but if you start off, if every night you go to bed and you're thinking, I might drink tomorrow, that creates anxiety, that creates fear, and nobody stays sober out of fear. People stay sober because they build a life that they do not want to give up. Would we agree with that statement?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing, we talk about relapse a lot. We talk about building that pathway. Again, the way I described is you take a thread and tie it between you and activity, and you do it again and again and again. And you wrap another thread every time you got a rope, right?
Right.
That's the way our neural pathways work. Well, the problem is we did that with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
That rope does not go away, right? So what we have to do is continue the behavior to hang on to that new rope. Because when creatures a habit, if we let go of the new rope, it's the devil you're going to grab the old rope. And now you've relapsed.
Absolutely. And, we can put it in terms. We can put it in terms that more people might understand, because not everybody out there understands the full thing about addiction or alcoholism or any of that. But cigarette smoking. Cigarette smoking is an addiction. It creates a physical addiction, and it's also a psychological addiction. It's just like every other addiction.
Sure.
The difference is cigarette smoke isn't going to make you crash your car. It isn't going to make you do certain things. It's a slower death. It's a slower death, so we don't really think about it as a danger the way we do with meth and crack and coke and alcohol. But you could quit smoking for 10 years and pick up one cigarette one day and think, I'll just have a cigarette. Yeah. And maybe you might just have one cigarette. Maybe you'll cough and put it out right away and say, I'm not doing this shit again. Or maybe you'll smoke it, it'll feel good, and then you'll think of maybe a couple of days later, I could have another one. And before you know it, you're right back to quitting that addiction. You have to restart to quit that addiction all over again. And it takes, because that thread still exists, like you said, it's weaker than it was. And it's faded. But when we plug back into it, it doesn't take us 10 years to get to where we were. It takes us maybe a month. It takes maybe a month of, because once we feed it the energy, it starts to rebuild and grow. So that's, because we've seen a lot of people like, why don't you just quit? Why, but have you had to do that? Have you had to quit sugar in your life? Because sugar, we're addicted to sugar as well.
Oh my goodness.
And people get headaches, they get sick, they get, and they get nervous. There's all sorts of things out there that you can really show yourself, just changing habits. Here, you want to learn what it's like to change an addiction or to change habits. If you brush your teeth with your right hand, tomorrow morning, start with your left hand and see how long it takes you before it feels normal.
Right.
And don't go back. Don't switch back, because that's not fair. Every day you got to do it with that left hand. And you're going to jab your gums. You're going to bust your lip. You're going to do all sorts of stuff. You're going to curse everybody. You're going to curse the Crest company for their toothpaste. You're going to lose your shit until you build that pathway, that habit, that neuroplasticity that we have. So go ahead and try it. Just don't blame me when you have bloody gums every morning.
That's funny. I do a version of that in that, it's like whack-a-mole, the disease, right? Once you get this under control, this pops up over here, and you got to take, there's the smoking, and then there's the sex, and then there's the gambling, and then it's like whack-a-mole. The food. And I think when Bill W. and Dr. Bob wrote, there's a few things that I really respect out of their brilliance. They were absolutely brilliant. Number one, when they wrote How It Works, they tell you it's an all or nothing thing 6 or 7 times in the first 3 paragraphs. We see the person there who thoroughly followed our paths, those who would not give themselves completely, and so on. Softer, easier, softer way, the whole thing. The other thing was that it's how close they were with the whole allergy thing, with their limited,
It was a simple explanation of a very complicated thing, but the simplicity of the explanation does fit. It is the truth. there is an allergy component because it reacts differently in different people. And that's kind of what allergies do. So it's very
Right.
similar.
Well,
You're right. You're right. They kind of nailed it without even knowing probably what they were saying.
right. Well, because they knew it was different for some people and others when they
Yeah.
put it in their bodies without having the whole brain scans to verify,
Yeah.
brain chemistry and all that. They didn't have that in the 30s. So allergy made sense. And then
Yeah.
later, did the whole research and found out it's actually a disease, but it acts like an allergy because of the reaction. And they were brilliant because absolutely brilliant to figure that out.
And we're finding out more and more. We're learning a lot more about dopamine deficiencies and addiction. We're finding, even just the simple connection between diabetes and alcoholism that we didn't quite understand. Now we understand that because alcohol metastasizes differently in an alcoholic body than it does in a normal body. And that creates a sugar problem. So there's all sorts of things that go on. We got to constantly keep ourselves vigilant, is the truth. What we know today might be all different tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's one of the, I believe that the 12 steps was probably one of the most brilliant things ever put to paper. But I also know that it was written in a time period that's much different than today's time period. And there has to be some room for adjustment and understanding. And there has to be some sort of, maybe it needs a rewrite at one point. I don't know. I'm not there to rewrite the program. What I'm saying, though, is there is no one way that works for everybody. Every treatment center, the best treatment centers, Frank, they got an 8% success rate. Alcoholics Anonymous has, if it's somebody who attends more than one meeting, it's still only about 3.5% to 5% that recover, only because it's not fit for everybody. That's why we got to keep such open minds about everything. There are universals. You need help. It's very difficult to do on your own, but even that's been proven. There are some people that have done it on their own, but I think you got to have everything on the table, all the tools. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. And to support what you were saying, Karen and I were talking, and I said, yes, there's many ways to the mountaintop. And she says, yeah, but there's only one view. So I like that a lot.
That is fantastic. And it's brilliant. I had heard her say that a while back, but yeah. The truth is we kind of all start in the same place when we're born. We're kind of blank slates, tabula rasa. We could be anything we want to be. All we know is that we're hungry, we're tired, and we're happy or we're hurt. And that's all we know. So we all start there. But when you have an addiction and something else, a lot of us end up on the exact same mountaintop. Almost everybody ends up with the same view. But the path to get there is totally different. But the path to recovery is totally different as well. So actually, I should say we're going into the depth of the valley, into the dark, deep, scary places. We all end up in the scary places, and then we all end up with the view and recovery. How you got to the scary places is different, and how you got to the recovery is different. But it's always good to have. It's good to learn from other people. I love hearing new ideas and new stories, right?
Absolutely. You said, you can wake up in the morning and say, okay, it's going to be a great day. And then go on. I have a girl in my home group, and she's got a few years less than me, but she said something absolutely on point one night at a meeting. And she said, so I wake up and I say, it's going to be a great day, and this goes wrong. And I get to start my day over as many times as I want to. So I start my day over, and then something else goes wrong. And then I start my day over. And this happens several times. And then she just says, okay, so this is what we're doing today. Tomorrow's a new day. I'm just going to do the best I can to the day and use acceptance to get you through the day, and then start it over again tomorrow. And that's really good too.
Absolutely. And I agree. I mean, you could kind of reset yourself, say, oh, well, that didn't go as planned. Let me sit back, another sip of coffee. Let me try this again and keep going. But you also don't want to discount the fact that sometimes when things go wrong, it's to our advantage. Because it takes us in a different direction. It makes us think, and it helps us learn. If nothing ever went wrong, If everything was bluebirds and rainbows coming out of my butt, man, I wouldn't know anything.
I
But
agree.
I did not, I did not know how to change a tire until I got a flat tire. And then I had to learn how to change a tire. Most people have their cars. I guarantee most people would not know how to get their spare tire either out from under their car or out of their trunk because they've never had to deal with it. But now that I've dealt with it, now when somebody's stuck, I could pull over and help somebody. So one of my bad moments turned into a learning thing that benefited me. So never discount when things go wrong. There might be a benefit in it for you, right?
Two things that people say come to mind.
All right.
God doing for me what I can't do for myself, and things happening for me, not to me.
Yes. Which are the same statement when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's the same statement. It's just one's using God, one's using just the basic principle of a formulation.
Sure.
Things are happening that I didn't make happen, but they're happening because they need to happen, because there's a benefit, or because
in the mindset that it's for me, not to me.
That's the whole thing. It's like everybody, it's like the guy who stands at a funeral and says, "Oh God, how can you do this to me?" Well, you're the one standing. Somebody else is in a pine box. It did not happen to you. But we want to take it all on. Frank, we love being like, "Oh my God, we're horrible. We're beat down." And oh my God, you're standing at a funeral. Nothing happened to you.
Yeah.
You want to make it all about you and take away their moment. This is their moment. Celebrate their life and move and do what you got to do. But everybody wants to say and that's why I hate this thing where life shows up. I was doing good, then life showed up. Guess what? Life has always been there. Life has always been there. You're the one who hasn't showed up. Now that you showed up, you want to blame life? Life has always been there. It's not about that. It's about you and how you do things and how you act and react. Stop blaming the tree that fell in the woods and start blaming yourself because you weren't paying attention and you didn't see the tree fall. Okay?
Absolutely.
Now, we only got a few more minutes here, but I mean, we just went through. We got to do these every once in a while. How's that sound?
That sounds good. That sounds good.
And, this will be coming out in this Saturday, and people will be watching. And then you can always watch the replays on soberlifepodcast.com, which is our YouTube channel. You can check out our Facebook page. But I want people to know, there's good people like Frank out there. Frank, before you went into recovery, what did you want to be when you grew up? Even though you were partially a grown-up at the time, which one day we'll have to talk about getting sober in your 40s and late 40s, and even some people that's a hard thing to get our egos out of the way. But we'll talk about that next show.
Yeah, I got a good story about that. But
what did you want to be? What did you want to be?
A baseball player.
Okay, so that was it, and obviously that didn't work out.
No, I had 3 tryouts, and I obviously didn't make it the last tryout. And I always told people it's a good thing they didn't sign me because I was doing so much cocaine that it released me within a month anyway.
Right.
So,
right. Well, that's the problem with the cocaine baseball players. They run from home to first base, and you look back, and the line's gone. The line's gone. But obviously, your plan had nothing to do with doing what you do now.
No.
Was this?
I will say this.
Yeah.
I've always had a thing for helping people. I did work ocean rescue back in the day for a few years. And it was I liked the idea of going out where and when other people couldn't or wouldn't, and pulling somebody out and bringing them back. I like that idea that I'll help you. I got you,
Was that part of a Coast Guard thing? Was that part of a Coast Guard?
No,
thing?
I was just an ocean rescue lifeguard.
Oh, okay. All right. Gotcha.
And there was 2 pools. I worked at a resort. There was 2 pools and a beach stand, and it was right on the Boca Inlet. So,
and that's, if anybody doesn't know the Boca Inlet, on a windy day, go out there and sit and watch all the boats screw themselves up trying to get in and out of the Boca Inlet. It's a full day of entertainment, folks. I got to tell you. But then you came out in recovery. You became even more interested in helping people, correct?
I honestly believe that's why I was allowed to live. It's that whole story about the guy walking through the woods, falling in the hole.
Okay. All right.
right? And he's screaming, help, help, help. And the guy comes by, it's a priest. And he says, Father, help me. I've fallen in this hole. He says, I'll say a prayer for you, my son. He goes, oh, and he's still in the hole. Construction guy comes back by. And he's screaming. He hears the guy screaming. He goes, oh, what's wrong? I'm stuck in this hole. He throws a whole bunch of lumber down there, but no nails and no tools. He's still stuck in the hole. So finally, this guy comes by and says, help me, help me. And the guy hears it and he says, what's wrong? I'm stuck in a hole, stuck in this hole. The guy jumps down in the hole with him, and the guy in the hole freaks out. Oh my God, what are you doing? Now we're both stuck in this fucking hole. He puts his arm around him and says, don't worry, brother. I've been in this very hole. Stick with me. I know the way out.
I like that.
It's what we do. It's what, whether we do it for a living or we do it in the either program, that's what we do.
It's about action. It's about action.
Yeah.
Thought alone, prayer alone, none of those things alone do anything. You have to have action. You have to step up and help people. We know a lot of people who would step over a homeless guy in the street to get a good seat at church. We know a lot of people that will, that will yell and scream at their wife and kids after they get home from a meeting where they talked about peace and love. You got to live it. You got to do it. And helping other people is a great way to do it. Frank, we appreciate the great work you do up there in Brevard County, and I appreciate your friendship.
I appreciate yours. Thank you.
And you're a good man with a good heart, and we need more people like you out there doing what you do. And everybody, before we go, actually, I'll let you do the final thought. Frank, somebody out there is listening to this podcast right now, and let's put them in our situations where they're a little bit older, they're in their 40s or so, and they're ashamed of where they've come to in their life with the drugs or with the gambling or with the drinking or whatever it might be. And they're afraid to ask for help because they're so ashamed. What do you want to tell them?
There is help. There are people that have done what you've done and worse than you've done. And we're here to help you. And there's no shame in that because we've all done it. And it's time to end it so you can be your real self. When we're not our real self. So find a meeting and go in there and tell somebody, this is my first time and I don't know what to do. And they'll love you until you can love yourself.
Excellent. And I want to tell that person out there listening right now, listen, you feel like you're stuck in the mud, but if you know the formula, you can turn mud into brick, and that makes a great foundation to build anything you want to build. So find somebody who knows the formula, listen to them. Don't worry about the shame and guilt. That fades quickly, and it fades when you start to triumph, and you will. So please call somebody, get some help. Frank McCoy, thank you so very much, my friend.
Thank you.
I hope to see you real soon, brother.
I hope to see you guys too. It's always fun when we get together, and I don't have enough words to adequately describe how much I appreciate and love you guys. So thank you.
Right back at you, my friend. And thank all of you out there for watching the Sober Life Podcast. Joining me, your host, Scott Jones, our guest, Frank McCoy. And, of course, thanking Sober Life Studios and our sponsor, One Brother, One Sister, for allowing this show to be out there. Remember to subscribe to this channel. Share this with your friends. And until then, always remember, every day, do 2 nice things for yourself, 1 nice thing for somebody else, and you'll never, ever have a bad day. Thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.